Okay, I'm redoing this video again. This is probably my third time or fourth time redoing this video. I didn't like how that video came out because just didn't like how the video was. So this is me redoing my top 10 list of the best WCW Halloween Havoc matches of all time. Just in my opinion, overall in my opinion, of the best WCW matches, just in this list of order of matches I have them in. Just gonna give you my thoughts of why I have them in this list and just explain why these matches were so good and why they're on the list. So let's get started with this video. At number 10 is from 1989 between Lex Luger and Brian Pillman. This was a very good matchup. You had a very green Lex Luger who wasn't the Lex Luger that we're accustomed, who wasn't the main at the main event level, and then you had Flying Brian Pillman, and you had these two go at it for the NWA United States Heavyweight title, and which was a very good matchup, probably one of the best matches on that card. You had Brian Pillman, who was a high flyer. He was doing his usual offense, and then you had Lex Luger, who was using his power in this matchup, and you just combine that together and you got a really good matchup. And that's what it was, is these two just put on a clinic. They told a real good story with Brian Pillman using all his high flying moves to try to beat Lex Luger and his speed and quickness to sort of slow down Lex Luger using his power against Brian Pillman, and this just told a really good story, and it was probably one of the best matches of the night on that pay-per-view, and it was very enjoyable. Probably one of my favorite Brian Pillman matches of all time, mainly due to the fact of the story, and then the fact that many people didn't think that Brian Pillman was going to take the belt from Lex Luger, but he came close to it in a very good matchup, which I thought Brian Pillman was going to win the United States title, but he didn't. But he showed here why he should have been United States champion, or at least gotten a world title run, or gotten a shot at the world title. Very good matchup, and I really enjoyed it. Number 9 is from Halloween Havoc 1995 between Ric Flair and Sting against Arn Anderson and Flying Brian Pillman. This was a very good matchup. You had four of the best workers in WCW going at it, and the story behind it was Ric Flair needing Sting's help to sort of go up against Arn Anderson and Flying Brian Pillman, because it was 2 against 1, and Ric Flair was going asking everybody in WCW for his help, but nobody wanted to help Ric Flair out because of his shady past and him doing what he did in the past. So he came to his one true mortal enemy, and that was Sting. And Sting turned him down a couple times, but he finally accepted, and thus you had your tag team matchup. This was a very good tag team matchup. It was very enjoyable, and then the ending helped the matchup a little bit even more with Ric Flair turning on Sting, and then of course you had the four horsemen reform, and they beat down Sting, and this was just probably one of my favorite matches, and it's one of those gems in WCW that many people don't talk about, but because they usually talk about some of the main event matches and other bad matches in WCW, but they don't talk about this, as this is a very rare gem and one of the most entertaining matches, mainly due to the angle and then the four that were involved in this matchup. Very good matchup. Number 8 is from Halloween Havoc 1998. This was a very good matchup between Raven and Chris Jericho, two heels going at it for the TV title. Excuse me. They put on a very good matchup. You had Chris Jericho getting cheered in this matchup, mainly due to the fact that many people didn't like Raven. You had Raven use his Raven's rules in this matchup, using the chair and hitting Jericho in the face with the chair, and then Chris Jericho doing his usual high spots. And this was just a very fun matchup from top to bottom. And the matchup, although the matchup didn't have no story or no build, and it was just two guys thrown together, it was a very good matchup for just two guys who were just thrown together at the last minute on the pay-per-view. Very good matchup. Number 7 is from Halloween Havoc 1993, the Texas Death Match between Cactus Jack and Vader. This was a very good matchup. You had Vader, who was a dominant monster in WCW, and he was unstoppable at that time, and you had Cactus Jack, who was who was up to the challenge of trying to stop Vader, and he was hardcore and he was doing everything he can to destroy Vader and beat Vader, and Vader was doing his usual monster offense in this matchup. This was a very good matchup, and I highly enjoyed it. Very entertaining, and I recommend you find this matchup somewhere on YouTube or anywhere, because that's how good this matchup is. Number 6 is Ricky Steamboat and Brian Pillman from Halloween Havoc 1992. These two had a very good matchup. These two had two different styles in the ring, but they were able to work those two styles in one match, and they just were able to put on a very good matchup against each other. The only thing that hurts this matchup though was the ending, as Ricky Steamboat ended up winning this match by DQ. So really, you didn't have a clear-cut winner. You just had a DQ that just happened, and it really didn't solve anything. But still, for what it was, for what it was in this matchup, this was a very entertaining matchup, and I highly enjoyed it. And I recommend you watch this matchup or find it somewhere on YouTube. Number 5 is from 1996 between DDP and Eddie Guerrero. This was a very good matchup. These two had a matchup, and it was stemming off of their feud over the Battle Bowl ring in 1996, where Eddie Guerrero won the Battle Bowl ring from DDP, and DDP was just doing everything he can to he stole the Battle Bowl ring from Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero wanted his revenge, and thus these two had like two matches prior to this, and then coming into this matchup, these two just had so much hatred storyline wise, and it showed in this matchup. Very good matchup, high flying action. You had a lot of counters in this move. DDP showing his explosive offense, Eddie Guerrero doing his thing, and then you just had a lot of near falls and great storytelling in this matchup. And then the ending came with DDP, I guess, knocking Eddie Guerrero out with the clothesline, a devastating clothesline, and then putting Eddie Guerrero in the diamond cutter and thus beating him. But overall, for the matchup that you got at this pay-per-view, this was a very good matchup and probably one of the most underrated gems in WCW. Number 4 is from Halloween Havoc 1999, the strap match between DDP and Ric Flair. Now I know I'm going to get hate for people saying why I would put this on here. I just felt that this was a very entertaining matchup. Probably not the best strap match that you'll find in wrestling history, because there's other matches that are better than this, but for what it was, this was a very entertaining matchup. You had DDP using the strap and beating the hell out of Ric Flair. Ric Flair trying to get away from DDP, and then DDP just at the end after the match trying to destroy Ric Flair and put him out of WCW. And this just was overall a good, entertaining strap match for what it was, and I enjoyed it. And it's probably one of my favorite DD matches in WCW, just for the entertainment value. I mean, it's not the greatest match in the world, but for entertainment, it's pretty good. Number 3 is a matchup from 1996 for the Cruiserweight title between Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio. These two had a very good matchup. These two also had matches before this, but this was one of their best matches between the two. A lot of high flying action, a lot of cruiserweight action, a lot of counters, a lot of moves you don't normally see in WCW, and nice storytelling. And overall, this is just what a cruiserweight match is supposed to be. Two guys just battling it out and doing everything they can to win the belt. I enjoyed this. Probably one of my favorite matches. Number 2 is from Halloween Havoc 1998 between DDP and Bill Goldberg. This was a very good matchup, had a good story coming into this matchup, if DDP was going to be the one to end the streak or if Goldberg was going to continue the streak, and how well Goldberg's conditioning was. You saw a lot of counters, a lot of reversals. The Diamond Cutter countered into the Jackhammer. The Jackhammer countered into the Diamond Cutter, and then other reversals and counters and pin and near falls in this matchup. Just a very good matchup. Highly enjoyed it. And then finally, number 1, Mask versus Title, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. This is, I already talked about this in previous videos, so I'm just going to say a little bit. Very good matchup. Had a lot of drama and emotions going into this matchup. A lot of storytelling. And just overall, probably one of the best matches in WCW. And it was rated Match of the Year in 1997. Well, anyhow, that's just my video. Thank you for rate, comment.